This is Asia Today.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ni Choyan in Beijing. It's 7 p.m. here in the Chinese capital. Coming up on Asia Today. 1 in 4 people in Gaza faces starvation as Israel continues its strikes on the central and southern regions.
40 people from Al-Hana and At-Turk family were killed, mostly women and children.
Hamas says it will send a delegation to Cairo to discuss Egypt's plan for a ceasefire in Gaza. With the arrival of 2024 just 3 days away, shoppers in Shanghai are already enjoying the holiday vibes. Our top story, China's President Xi Jinping has met with the country's diplomatic envoys in Beijing. He said there had been major diplomatic achievements. He called on the envoys to firmly adhere to the vision of building a global community of a shared future. People are sifting through the rubble for survivors in Rafah following an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. Israel has continued heavy strikes across central and southern Gaza in areas cramped with tens of thousands of already displaced Palestinians. Palestinian health authorities said 210 people have been confirmed killed in Israeli strikes in the past 24 hours. The widening air and ground offensive against Hamas has forced thousands more to flee in recent days. Let me bring in our correspondents Noor Harazain in Gaza and Stephanie Fried in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for joining us, to you both. Let me start with Noor first. Now, Israeli forces are bombarding cities, towns, and refugee camps across Gaza. What's the latest on the ground?
Well, yes, a very, very intensive day of Israeli attacks and shelling, specifically on middle Gaza. Right now I am inside the Shuhada Al-Aqsa hospital, and actually over the past 2 hours and the ambulances arrived to this hospital filled with people injured and tens that were killed in a series of Israeli strikes in middle Gaza. Talking about middle Gaza, we mean refugee camps that are very close to each other. Al-Burej refugee camp, Al-Nusayrat refugee camp, Deir al-Balah, and also the Al-Maghazi refugee camp. There were several Israeli strikes on residential homes, farms, and also there is intensive Israeli tanks shelling on the eastern side of the Al-Burej camp. At the same time, Israeli tanks incursioned into the Al-Burej refugee camp. They are now taking control of the camp. They stormed into the UN schools where hundreds of families are taking shelter, separated men from women, arrested dozens of men. According to eyewitnesses and also paramedics, those people who are injured in the Al-Burej refugee camp, the paramedics cannot actually reach them. When the ambulances try to enter the camp, the Israeli snipers shoot at them. So according to the reports, there is dozens of people that are killed in Al-Burej refugee camp. However, they cannot evacuate the bodies because now the Israeli forces are taking control of the camp, which is in middle Gaza, and it is just 5 kilometers away from my current location. Talking about northern Gaza, there was a series of Israeli strikes in northern Gaza. In one airstrike, it killed 40 people, mostly women and men from the At-Turk and Al-Hana family. The same thing is happening also in southern Gaza, in Rafah and Khan Younis. A series of Israeli strikes where dozens were killed. In one strike in Rafah, the Israeli warplane targeted a home, killing 22 Palestinians, including men, women and children.
And the United Nations says tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians have streamed into the town of Rafah in the southernmost end of Gaza in recent days, crowding into an already overwhelmed area. How's the town coping with the influx?
Well, the city of Rafah, yes, it is a big city here in southern Gaza, but it is about refugee camps and deserts. That's it. So since the evacuations ordered from the Israeli army started weeks ago, and Palestinians have been evacuating their homes to the deserts of Rafah city, setting their camps and making new camps. However, now with the very big number of displaced Palestinians, these camps are overcrowded. It is impossible to squeeze all of that amount of people inside the refugee camps in Rafah, adding the fact that it is just a desert. I mean, there is no infrastructure there. There is no running water. There is no electricity, there is no internet or network. So yes, the Palestinians are going through a very bad humanitarian crisis, very bad humanitarian situation inside the camp, adding the fact that already there is attacks around and very close and in the refugee camps where Palestinians are taking shelter. I mean, yesterday one of the Israeli strikes hit the Hayy Zuhur neighborhood, which is full with Palestinians, displaced people who evacuated their homes. So yes, it's a big catastrophe for everyone in Gaza, especially those displaced people who cannot find the necessities and they cannot even find safety.
Yeah, extremely harsh conditions there. Thank you, Noor, for bringing us the latest. Do stay safe and take care. Stephanie, over to you. Bring us to the latest on the operations of the Israel Defense Forces.
The latest that we're getting from the Israeli army spokesperson is that Israel is moving for the first time into an area called Kirbat Ikza, which is in the south of Gaza. And that's significant because a number of the Hamas affiliates, if you will, who entered Israel and murdered and kidnapped and brutalized the population there on October 7th came from that area. And it's another one of the Hamas centers. So the army's talking about the fact that there are fierce battles that are going on in that area right now, weapons being uncovered, again, tunnels being uncovered, the networks being uncovered in an effort essentially to untether Hamas from its stronghold in Gaza. As well, the Israeli army, the IDF spokesperson, talks about advances on the southern outskirts of Khan Younis, going in further toward Khan Younis. Those are the military advances. At the same time, there are developments that are happening on the northern border, Israel with Lebanon, and that continues somewhat of a volley back and forth of mostly mortars and anti-tank missiles, that are being fired from Lebanon onto Israeli towns, Israeli homes, Israeli military units, a church on Christmas Day, and that has been a back and forth because then Israel retaliates and fires back and strikes positions that it believes are Hezbollah, or Hezbollah positions is what the army says, inside of Lebanon. And that's another front that is being watched very closely, and a question has arisen, or has been an ongoing question is being asked, what's going to happen with that front, with also people being evacuated from that area, people evacuated from the southern Gaza border areas. So that's the latest in terms of the major military moves, advances right now, and the fight goes on in Gaza, as we know.
The Israeli army says its troops killed 3 Israeli hostages in Gaza on December 15th when the soldiers mistook their cries for help as an ambush. Now, Israel has repeatedly said that one of the chief goals is the return of the hostages. So tell us more about this.
Right, and the reason that would come up now, 2 weeks after that happened, is because the Army just released the findings of its investigation into those 3 hostages that were being held. They were killed by the Israeli Army. And what the findings, the main points of that finding is into the investigation is that a number of things. There were fierce battles that were going on in that area between Hamas, who were holding those hostages in a building, and the Israeli army. And it was a back and forth with, again, very fierce, very dangerous, close quarters. And what they understood and what had been used, some of the tactics that are used in some of these areas are false decoys. And what I mean by that is, let's say in the past week, there's been a report of a Palestinian woman, a Gazan woman with a child, going out toward Israeli troops. She was used as a decoy for Hamas to ambush the troops who went toward her. Not shooting, but they went toward her because she had a child, and then killed the troops. So that was being used in this area as well by those operatives that were holding the hostages. Recorded voices of children crying in Hebrew, recorded messages in Hebrew of people saying on microphones or on loudspeakers, "We're hostages." They didn't quite know who to believe or what to believe, because this is a tactic that is used to then ambush and kill soldiers. But the bottom line is, in the finding, is that the soldiers were wrong, because the hostages came out, they were shirtless. They went according to what they understand is protocol, which we've seen shirtless people. The reason for that is to make sure nobody has explosives strapped on them. You remove your shirt to remove any doubt, hands up, white flag. So the army these soldiers broke with protocol. The hostages are absolutely the #1 priority. That's according to the government. But also at the same time, the criticism is the #1 priority as well is to wipe out Hamas. And with hostages, they're caught in the middle, and we're seeing this is the example of it. Those 2 goals and aims somewhat contradict each other.
Very true. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Stephanie Free, live for us in Tel Aviv. Appreciate it. A Hamas official says its delegation will visit Cairo on Friday and respond to a three-stage ceasefire plan proposed by Egypt to end the war in Gaza. Egypt says it will release more details after receiving responses on the plan. And for the latest on this, let's go live to our correspondent Adel Amaroui joining me in Cairo. Good to have you with us this hour, Adel. What's the latest on the possible ceasefire plan?
Well, we're expecting a delegation from Hamas to join those of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in negotiations with the Egyptian Intelligence Bureau. This comes after Egypt's proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, along with a general plan to hopefully push a longer truce, and from that into actual political change inside the Palestinian occupied territories to maintain a strong, calm and peace and security, according to an Egyptian statement. Only until Thursday night, the Egyptian State Information Services said that it had not yet received any feedback from all the parties involved in these negotiations. That includes both Israel and the Palestinian armed resistance group, Hamas, Islamic Jihad and the others, as well as the Fatah movement and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. The meetings today should become the beginning of a series of meetings for Cairo to receive the feedback, first from the parties involved in Gaza, which, by the way, also just a few hours ago, yesterday specifically, Hamas announced that it and four other Palestinian groups in Gaza have agreed that they will not accept any terms unless they include a complete termination of hostilities in Gaza. And this is what the Egyptian initiative aims to. Egypt wants to, first of all, propose a series of ceasefires connected and long enough so that an exchange of hostages between Israel and Palestine or Palestinian groups in Gaza to take place as a sign of confidence that both parties are agreeing to move forward in a non-violent manner. After that, a proposal from Egypt to form a technocrat unity government in Palestine that will be made up of civilians that will lead the management of the West Bank and Gaza. They will be overlooking the aid supply and flow into Gaza, and also overlooking general elections that will form a government that unifies the Palestinian factions and become a body capable enough to join talks with the Israelis for a longer ceasefire talks and truce. The Egyptian proposal is still to be negotiated. After getting the feedback from all the parties involved, Egypt says it will redraft, rework its final draft for this proposal, hopefully to get approval from all the parties involved, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has been seeing mounting pressure in concerns to the hostages files in Gaza.
Yeah, hopefully the ceasefire plan could lead to long-term peace and put an end to the suffering. Thank you very much. Ada Marie, live for us in Cairo.